Hello everyone, Violet here, and today we're going to continue with our esoteric foundations and certain mindfulness practices and exercises by looking at the emotions and really talking about how to keep your emotions centered. So in modern society, I think a lot of emphasis is put on the intellectual, and the emotions tend to be kind of like overlooked or suppressed or not paid enough attention to. And oftentimes when people get into, I think, spirituality and understanding depth to things and paying attention to their intuition and stuff like that, we sometimes swing almost too far in the other direction towards really like letting our emotions steer us. And I think the best way to look at this would actually to be looking at it in context with the past two exercises that we did. So this is the third. The first one had to do with thinking, and the second one had to do with the will, and here we are on emotions. And each of these, you can tell, is actually freeing us from a particular drive. So with the thinking exercise, it really helps us to be free thinking, to free our thinking from the constructs of how you might normally see something or just take something in or assume something to be true that, perhaps you're taught in a certain way or society puts on you in a certain way. It's freeing your thoughts, freeing your thinking without disregarding thinking, right? So this is in a very similar way. It's like freeing ourselves from our emotions so that like our emotions don't drive us, we drive us. But it's not through disregarding our emotions or pushing them away. And the second exercise, of course, is also freeing our will to be truly our own. So the first two exercises had a particular like beginning and end point. It was like you sit and you do this exercise or you do a series of tasks. This one is actually one that you take with you at all times. And this is about keeping yourself in check to where you're not being swayed in any particular direction really far with your emotions. I think this is really important too, to talk to people who identify as empaths, who have the experience often of taking in emotions that aren't even your own. This is another thing that I think is very common in spiritual spaces or people who, are psychics or intuitives or sensitives. But some of the truth that's really revealed here is that actually having a very protected aura or protected, space around you to where you know exactly that, what you feel is your own, number one, is vital to being a clear intuitive or clearly being able to understand spiritual matters. So we'll get back into that because I have some thoughts about that. But this exercise is essentially noticing how your emotions pull you in different directions, what your triggers might be, things like that, and bringing yourself back to a central place. And then you do take a moment, at least once a day, I'll read this to you actually. You take care that no joy carries you away, no pain floors you, no incident drives you to boundless anger or annoyance, no expectation fills you with fear or anxiety, and no situation leaves you stunned or bewildered, and so forth. You should not fear that this exercise will render you neutral or poor in your response to life. Instead, you will soon notice that what occurred in you before this exercise is replaced by purified qualities of soul. Above all, by attending carefully, you will eventually come to sense an inner tranquility in your body. And so here's the exercise that you actually stop and do each day. It says you should pour this feeling, so that inner tranquility, pour this feeling into your body by letting it radiate from the heart to the hands, to the feet, and finally to the head. In this case, this cannot be done for each individual exercise, since really this is not a single exercise, but an ongoing attentiveness to your inner life of soul. At least once a day, you should invoke this inner sense of peace and then practice allowing its current to emanate from the heart. And as you do this, you continue the first two exercises, which is essentially meditation, freeing your thinking, and willpower, freeing your sense of drive and, your personal will. So one thing that I wanted to mention with this one is I've been thinking about, that idea of really being able to feel other people's emotions. And I work as a tarot reader. I know a lot of people who work in this way too. And something that I've been working with and developing, and I don't know if I've heard it exactly in these terms before, but I'll just tell you how I've been thinking about it, and perhaps you can let me know what you think. But instead of, when I'm reading for someone, instead of having myself kind of reach out and sort of take in their feelings and their emotions. Actually, I read for a lot of people sort of back to back in live streams. So doing so, I mean, it that could be quite overwhelming. That could be quite draining if I did that every time. Instead of that, I keep myself kind of in my own energy bubble, if you will. I think, it's important to always have your energy contained and know, what it is, what is me, what is you, that kind of a thing. But what I do really connect with is the feeling of connecting upwards, connecting up, to the divine, connecting up through the hierarchies, connecting to, my angel guides, how, the language that you might use for this. And really knowing what that feels like. And a lot of times with these mindfulness practices, especially as we get further into some of these in, Western esotericism, you really get a feeling for what that feels like to be connected. And so I try to do that instead, so that I hopefully, when I'm reading, it actually might be more accurate, hopefully, in that it's not colored by the sort of emotions or the biases or, the kind of feelings of being in the situation that I'm reading for, but instead is more connected to all right, what do the higher, if we're consciously asking for guidance, what would the higher realms be able to give us in more of a clear way, in more of a higher perspective way. Then it's really hard to understand something when you're kind of in the middle of it and swimming in it. So that's something I've been thinking about, and especially with this exercise, I've been working with that. So I do hope that this is helpful, and I will see you in another video. We will go into the next exercise. Next we will be freeing the judgment of things, I think is the best way to say it. But I will see you there, and thank you so much for being here. Let me know how your experience is working with your emotions.